Justice! Now I wanted to show you this next step partly because I wanted to show you where he's at, but I also wanted to show you what you need to do today before we ride up there. He's never had the saddle pad on. He's not had a ton of flag work or anything like that, but I want to break it down into the simplest form possible. Number one, my horse shows signs of being liked, like he starts to show you itchy spots. So that was that bonding stage that I showed you just as I departed the round pen up there with Freedom. He says, I like it when you scratch me. I love it, love it, love it. Please scratch me more. We want to see your horses do that a little bit. Once they really let you in like that, well, then you can start to do some other tests. One of the first tests that we do is called a standstill test. Can he just stand there while something happens around him? And you don't need a flag because what you have is a saddle. But he's proving to stand quite well for the flag, so I think, okay, great. He's ready. Here's my standstill test. I have under his legs here a general idea of where he's supposed to stand. And if I want, I can actually drop that lead rope. And I throw that saddle pad on him like that. And if he stands still, I'm like, great, we can go to the next step. If he doesn't, if he moves off, then we'll put him back in place. This is what happens when you develop enough trust with the horses. They say, look, whatever you do to me, it's not going to hurt me. Oh, look at this. Did he fail the standstill test? Yes. I stop what I'm doing. I put him back in this little square that I made for him. I say thank you, and I carry on. If he moves out again, I allow it. I fix it up, and I bring him back. You are little. I think we're going to need to go all the way up. He's just a young horse. I have no intention of riding him today. But I do want to expose him to the next step. So here we go. Back to where you're supposed to be. And even though that took 12 seconds to get him back in place, that's worth it. Never be in a hurry to ride. Never be in a hurry to say, I got to get this going because we got to get down the trail. If your horse is likely to take more time, then prepare for it by arriving early rather than getting there and rushing the horse through the process. Because what we want ultimately is not a horse that just trusts people, but he also is respectful. He says, I like to stand still because I understand that's where the most comfort is. Every time I move off, well, then I lose some of that. So here we go. We're about to cinch up, and I think, if I'm not sure about this, I'm pretty confident that he'll be okay. But if I'm not sure about this, I'll take it one step earlier. I'll take that off, and I'll throw this rope around here like this, and I'll just see what he feels with that rope touching his belly like that. And I might even squeeze just a little bit, just like if I were cinching up. And if he passes that standstill test, that's your first test before you ride, is will my horse stand still? And look, I'm squeezing him, and he says, I can't stand still for that. So I bring him right back to where we started. We call that a reset. We try that again. Can he stand still for that? I think, great. Okay, you can stand still for that. Thank goodness you're good, because I didn't want to just throw that saddle pad on and find out the hard way that you can't stand still. And the pad goes under his belly, and we get all kinds of issues showing up. So let's try the next step here. Now, some of your horses are just going to be perfect for saddling, and some of them will drift around a little bit. They'll sort of drift to the side and get a little distracted. What I want you to do is say, no, I don't want that today. We're going to start today with a really clear goal that you will stand for this process. Good. Look at that. You allowed that to tighten up. I loosen it up. See if you allow it to tighten up again. Good. I loosen it up. Just like before, where you go in and go out, you approach and retreat. You tighten up. Uh-oh. Now you're wearing it. What should I do? Should I just send him on, or should I bring him back to this place? Bring him back. Good. Push him back here. Bring him right back here. So he learns, even as a baby, he learns, like, I have this responsibility to stand when my human asks me to stand. Wouldn't that be cool? He never learns to walk around or get distracted too much. Now the second test is a movement test. Before you ride, you have to pass 3 tests. You have to pass the standstill test. You have to pass a movement test. And the last test is called a flash test. It's what we do flash training. But what I want to see now is I want to see him move with this pad on and determine whether or not he's going to be a rideable horse. Now, I'm not going to ride him today, but I want to see what he looks like carrying the pad. I think I could ride that at that speed. If he only took 4 steps, I could probably ride that. So we'll see if we can handle a few more steps. And I'll just kind of send him on out around me. Good job. You don't have to go fast. We'll just pass a simple movement test. Send him on out here. Now he's getting just a little bit too close to me. So I'm going to ask him to step away from me. Those are boundaries. I'll ask him to walk on out again. He can stop if he needs to. Don't need to rush him into this. He needs to flow into it. He needs to feel like this is okay. Yeah. Good. So a lot of cowboys at this point would say, get on with it, Don. You got the saddle on, push him around, canter, go. Yep, you're getting just a little close. Good. There's no need for all of that. He just needs to wear it. His first experience needs to be really, really positive. And his second experience needs to be positive. And his third experience needs to be positive. And if we end up with a bad experience somewhere in the mix, it's balanced out with 1,000 great experiences. I don't know if you know this, but in human psychology, they say it takes 10 positive interactions to balance out 1 negative. That's wild, isn't it? You got to eat 1 bad Subway sandwich. And you got to have 10 good ones before you go back again. Before you say, I like that place. I'll drop that for a sec. Now, he's never really circled before. So this is also a first for him. And I'm just taking it super slow. He doesn't have to go around and trot for 10 circles. Don't come close to me, please. Just needs to learn how to move when asked. There you go. Good. If he responds, then we can hold him in the response for a little longer each time and get a little bit more walk steps. Good job, Justice. So clever. Have to be clear that when I want him to go out on the circle, I need his shoulders and his nose to go out first. Nose, shoulders, and there, take the rest of your body with you. Shoulders. Good. Good job. You're wearing that pad like a pro. Good job. Nose. Nose has to go out on the circle. Nose on the circle. Nose, and then shoulders go as well. And you guys see I'm pulling on that line to make him go? That's a really, really good thing to practice, because when I'm riding, guess what I'm using for stopping and steering? That line, right? I'm interacting with that line when I'm riding. So when I'm on the ground, I need to interact with that line as much as I possibly can. I don't want to just put the line down like this and say, now go on the circle, because he won't learn to be a good riding horse that way. He might learn how to circle. I might be preparing for advanced liberty work that way, but this is what prepares for the ride. This line that he feels, that talks to him, that tells him to move. He feels that line and it tells him to move. And I ask that head to follow that line out there. And if he can walk one circle, then we can talk about trotting, but he's not there yet. He's just got to learn how to circle first. Learn how to follow that rope out there. There you go. Now I, on my own, might show you some different techniques, but when I've got a group like this, I want to show you the basics so that anybody can do it. Like, you don't have to be a professional to get out there and help your horse go. Just pull him out, push his head out there, and teach him to walk. Now he's starting to flow a little bit more. He's not so hesitant now. I think, great work. Now we have something to work with. He's got a lot of licking and chewing. I change directions often. Get a little bit more speed now that we've got some flow. And that's all we need to start. You don't need to buck him out. You don't need to send him till he can't handle it anymore. You just say, go a little bit, turn, go back the other way, turn, go back the other way. Good job, thank you. If he hesitates, teach him to come off of that line again. That's great. That's a really, really, really great start. So with your more advanced horses, you'll be testing walk, trot, and probably canter. You don't have to canter for 10 steps. You just see if they respond to that line when you pull that line out. See if they respond to that stick when you drive them out. So in review, we have the first test, which is a standstill test. You'll literally draw a box on the ground if you need to. Put your horse in that space, and everything you do, saddling, bridling, whatever, has to happen there. Then, the motion test. You take them out and say, do you look rideable? Are you responsive when I ask for things? And if they say, yes, I'm cool, I'm good, then you say, great, we're almost ready to ride. One more test. And that's a flash test. That's to see if the horse has gone what we call introverted or into la-la land. The horse will sometimes respond well to you, but then when they get real quiet, they start thinking about something else. And then you go to get on them, and all of a sudden the horse goes boom, and they're out of there. They suddenly get frightened by this sudden motion. So he passed the standstill test. He passed the motion test. Let's see if he can pass a flash test. And a flash test is anything that moves suddenly, like this. See him react to my hand there? He failed the flash test. He failed it again. So that would tell me that he's mentally in a state where he's like on edge. You should be able to flash your hand at your horse and he goes, I'm cool with that. And if he moves, it's not because he's afraid of my hand. Is this horse afraid of my hand? No, it's because he's gone, now he's better, right? He's gone introverted or into la la land. And so sudden motions like, whoa, oh my gosh, what happened to me right then? That's what you're testing for. The last thing you want to do is do a motion test and then go to get on your horse and he bucks you off because he actually went into la la land there for a minute. So we have hand tests, we have stick tests. See him, he's not afraid of this. He's not afraid of this rope. He's afraid of the speed. Well, he actually is a little bit afraid of that rope. Take that back. In that moment he was. But he's mostly afraid of the speed of the rope. Okay, real quick pop quiz. Who noticed what I just did when he backed up? Raise your hand if you noticed it. What did I do when he backed up? Brought him back forward. That's right, because we're kind of in that standstill stage again. Every time you finish a motion test, you want him to stand still for a flash test. And if a horse can handle flashing, he can handle that sudden motion of your hand or that sudden motion of that whip. And he doesn't flinch. And I think, you know what? We are ready to ride. But can you see he's not? See that motion, that all that flashing, it ramped him up. That shouldn't happen before you. If that happens before you ride, that means you need to do your tests again. You need to go back to standstill test. We bring him back in here. And you retest the standstill, even though now it's not the saddle, now it's my stick. And I say, excuse me, come back to where you're supposed to be, please. Come back to where you're supposed to be, please. You're supposed to be standing right here. You're supposed to be standing right here. Thank you very much. Even though you're scared, you can learn to respond to me instead of your fear. Because I want to be able to pass the flash test. I want to be able to pass the motion test. And then pass that flash test again at the end. That's my good guy. Uh-oh. You lost track of where you're supposed to be. Come back. Come back. Come back where you're supposed to be. That's it. Learn how to stand there. Uh-oh, you lost track of where you're supposed to be. Come back. This is what we call setting boundaries. Come back in here. Have you ever got on a horse that walks away when you get on? As soon as you're up there, they're like off, walking off. It's just because they haven't really learned the standstill test. They haven't really made it important during the saddling process or during the flash testing process. This is more important that he learns to stand still than he learns to. It's more important that he learns to stand still than that he learns to handle this. It's important that he learns to handle this, but it's more important that he learns to stand still. Does that make sense? As soon as he learns that, for the rest of his life, he'll say, it doesn't really matter what this is, if that's a flag or a whip or a stick or a saddle or a mountain lion. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that my human tells me to stand still and I trust him. And then this becomes kind of a non-issue. So when your horse gets bothered by the flag or the stick, see, the tendency is to sort of keep working the stick until he gets calm. That's not the issue. The issue is that he forgot his job. So I'm going to put him back in the place. I'm going to reward him for learning a lesson, and then we'll play with the whip again. So he learns actually 2 lessons, but he learns the most important lesson, which is to be calm under pressure, not just be brave related to the pressure. See, traditionally in natural horsemanship, we teach horses to be brave with the whip. But he's learning a better lesson today. He's learning to be brave and smart about what he's supposed to do when there's a whip in play. How smart are you? Can you not just handle the whip, but can you actually learn, like, to be calm and stand your ground during this moment in time? Good job. Can you not just handle the whip, but can you learn to stand your ground right there in spite of the whip? Go ahead.
So you're using that box. That's only because of what? How do I say this? It's because of the level you're at with him. Having him move around might be different in a different environment.
No,
You're working with your Mustang. Would you want the same thing? Do you try to create because you're trying to have him stay in a certain spot? You're not at that level with him, right?
not at the same level with the Mustang, no. And to give you the levels, it's simple. There's 4 B's. There's boundaries, there's bonding, and then there's bravery, and then there's basic skills. We're at the bravery stage with this horse. We're teaching him to handle stuff. But he's not even really bonded yet. The Mustang's not. So we're not teaching him things yet. We're just establishing a basic trust level. With him, we're now in a teaching mode. We're saying, this is scary, I know, but you can handle it. We couldn't do that yet with him. But once he's bonded, absolutely. Like he'll be here in a few weeks. Bill, go ahead.
One thing I wanted to point out was when you first put him with the saddle pad, the bareback pad, he stood in place. And what it reminded me is that every step along the way, you and Carrie have been adamant about resetting him.
That's right. That's right.
That's why Don could just walk up and go plop.
Yeah.
Not only the bonding, of course, but the fact that every time, if we're learning to pick up a hook and he moves up, put him back.
Yeah, that's right.
Doing the neck before trying it again.
Exactly right.
Conditioning is that consistency.
Yeah. The consistency of putting him back in place. Lori, how was he to trim, actually? Have you trimmed him yet? Was he good?
Better than some horses twice his age who won't barrel.
Yeah, yeah. So he was good. Good for the farrier because he learned this lesson early, really, really early. And I think we went a little bit backwards. In my traditional natural training, I was taught the reverse. I was taught the most important thing is he'd be okay with this whip. So he'd be dancing around and I would be going like this until he quit dancing. That works. It's just that we failed to teach him a more important lesson, which was forget about the whip. Pay attention to this job that I've given you. It's a real simple task. And when they learn that, when they learn to stand and truly let you work with them, they trust that their job is the same. I mean, there's a ton you can do with them. You can get right behind them. You get right on top of them. I mean, a horse that can handle this kind of stuff right here. That's a horse that I think I could probably ride that horse. And if I were going to, I'm not going to ride him, but if I were, I would go to the next stage and I would put my body weight on here. And what would I do if he moved? If he suddenly said, "Oh my gosh, I can't handle that guy. He's not moving because he's like, I got it." If I put my body weight on there and he says, "I got to move," guess what I do? I bring him back. Not that you went too far. Right about there. I just bring him back and I go again and I go again until pretty soon he can handle my body weight. And he knows that, I don't need to leave, because I learned that when I do leave, it's just not that comfortable to leave. So I'm just teaching him to handle my body weight and trust it. So when we get to that third B, that bravery step, it becomes really, really important that we teach him to stand still. So here's the review, because we're about to break and go for a ride on our own horses. I encourage you, you can use these round pens if you like to saddle up in, or you can go all the way to the back where we're going to be riding. Or you can even saddle up at your tie rack or at your trailer. But here's the thing. If you tie your horse and you go to put the saddle on and he moves a couple of feet, are you going to keep going with the saddle because it's heavy and you don't want to have to put it down? I would recommend you actually put the saddle down and bring him back, and you say, "Come on, back, put those hind feet over there." So this is why I actually take it off, and I would rather ground tie, leave that on the ground so I can access it easier, and then I'd go back and put that saddle on. And in that way, your horse will start to learn the first step really, really well. So stand still. Motion test. Can your horse go out and handle the walk and the trot and the canter and look rideable? And if they do, then you think, great. Last test, what's it called? Flash test. You're going to see if you can handle sudden movements of your hands, sudden movement of a stick, sudden noise, sudden visual sensation that could slightly bother him. And then if he passes all three, then we're good to ride. And what we're going to do riding up there is a process we call the 13 steps. And we're going to walk through teaching your horse to bend left, bend right, and follow your hands around, and then follow your legs around, and stop and turn, really basic control stuff. And if all that goes well, then I'll set you free to just go and ride and explore and have some fun out. Sound good?